Thank you very much. That was a wonderful talk, and I'm very, very sure that a lot of people here and around the world.
Right, there's a white car out there, it's got its lights on. If anyone's here...
You hear that, everybody? There's a white car out there with the lights on.
Across the road, they're going to have a flat battery.
Well, look, the time is running, and you've got something really, really good to listen to here. You heard before here when Peter was talking that he mentioned the Agenda 21. I mentioned it also to you about the United Nations wanting to take control. One of the ways that they want to take control was vaccinations through the health department. The other way that they want to take control, of course, is to control the land. And Agenda 21, which comes down to our federal government, then down to our state governments, and then down to our local governments, they are dictating to us everything that's happening around us. Now, Brian Shaw, who's down wherever he's here to speak to you tonight, he has been studying this quite thoroughly, and I'm sure you're going to really be very interested in what he's going to say to you. And he is the first man that I know of who has actually laid charges of treason against the Deputy Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, and some of the judiciary. So I'd like you to welcome Mr. Brian Shaw from Melbourne.
Thank you. Now my brief tonight is just to sort of explain that process and why that charge is laid. Based on your Commonwealth Constitution, which I find the average person has no knowledge of, what the structure is doing is blocking you out of the courtrooms. Now, in Queensland, when I ask a question of a Queenslander, what is the section for your state referendum requirement? The average Queenslander can't answer that question. Does anybody know what that section is? It's in the Queensland Constitution, but there's only 3 states with an inbuilt referendum in those state constitutions. Now the 3 states with that inbuilt referendum is Queensland, it's section 53 of your state constitution. Western Australia, it's section 73. And in New South Wales, it's section 7. Now what happened at the Australia Act was that I'll use the word internationalists. What the internationalists wanted at the Australia Act, they needed to remove the royal assent provision. Now, would anybody know what I'm talking about in royal assent provision? Now, what that means is that with a bill, a governor or a governor-general can only do 3 things with a bill. For instance, if you're the governor of Queensland, the bill comes to you and you like it, you sign it as the governor of Queensland. That's now an act. If the bill comes to you and you don't like the bill, you send it back to the Parliament. But prior to the Australia Act of 1986, if it had anything to do with a constitutional issue, you weren't allowed to touch it. It had to go back to the parent owner. The parent owner is the 2 houses of the UK Parliament, because the Commonwealth Constitution is a UK Act. And that's why it's an agreement between the people and the UK Parliament, or the monarch. You use the word crown. But the only way you can touch that is with the consent of the electorate. And most of your, excuse the expression, because you do not know your constitutions, state and Commonwealth, it's very easy to trick you. And that is what has occurred. Now, in the state constitutions, when they know, this is what they're doing, when they know that there's a referendum requirement, they just simply say, well, pass the legislation anyhow. Because there's another section just below it. It actually says that any person who's entitled to vote, and so you must be an elector, is entitled to bring legal proceedings in the Supreme Court of the state if the section wasn't abided by. Now, you're getting my point? My point is that when they know that they have a referendum requirement, but they know that you don't know that that is the case, they just let the legislation pass, and since they got this royal assent capacity sorted in 1986, that kept what you call in-house pen. The boys can do the signing off here. But what they then wait for is to see who's going to activate the second section, bring legal proceedings in the Supreme Court. Most times that's nil. So what they then say is, nobody objected. We'll push on to the next process. Now, the reason why they're getting away with that is because you don't know your constitutions. It's as simple as that. If you go look at all the other stuff, first look at the base. Always look at what you call your source of law. It takes you a long time. It's absolutely boring. You'll talk to a whole lot of people who generally don't know what the hell they're talking about. And you've got the two spectrums here. You've got what you call the ignorant farmer and the UB barrister. One is at a massive handicap because the first thing they say is, oh, we'll have to get a lawyer. That could be the worst thing you've gone and done. Oh, we'll have to get a group of lawyers. Now you're in bigger trouble. Because what they never ever tell you is a lawyer gets a double brief. Do you know what a double brief is? Let's say you're taking them on and you put 100 grand on the table. Unbeknownst to you, someone will pay him double to make sure they take all your money but lose the matter. Because if they don't work with that structure, they'll lose all their client list. They're told that. They'll tell them, you have got 1,000 clients. You win that case and you'll have none. So they always say, it's our livelihood. Now I'm going to show you why I went and laid the charges. Now, the average person doesn't know anything about what grand jury is. Would that be a fair comment? Grand jury, I sort of found it by accident when I reached the end of the road, and I just dropped the Victorian Crimes Act on the table one day. I just thought, I don't know where to go now. And this Crimes Act fell open at section 3.